everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers, and today we're here for another chitter chatter about another book off the 2025 Longlist Women's Prize for Fiction. So let's get started. Good morning or good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. As you just seen, I spun up Somewhere Else by Jenni Daiches, I think is how you pronounce her last name, and this is the book that we're going to be talking about today. So I was away on the weekend, so I had ample opportunity to listen to this. Now, when the list came out, I went looking for this book, and unfortunately, I could only get it either in paperback or in audio format. So I opted for audio format. I found it on Everant for those that are looking for it, because I knew it just wouldn't get to me in time for me to read it, because it usually takes a couple of weeks, and it was coming from the UK, so it would have been 3 or 4 weeks before it got to me, because I couldn't find it anywhere here that was selling it. So yeah, so unfortunately I couldn't get it in digital format, in an ebook. All right, so we are looking at, as I said, we are looking at a historical fiction called Somewhere Else, and it starts in the early 1900s, and it is a generational saga, is probably how I would label it, but historical fiction, and it's set in Scotland. So it was, just bringing up the nitty-gritties, I didn't have the page open. It's coming in at 328 pages. It was first published in September of 2024 by Scotland Street Press. And as I said, it is historical fiction. It is set in Scotland and a few other places around the world as well. So just so you know what sort of book this is, I talk about the little blurb that we have, whether I agree with that or not. It says Somewhere Else is ideal for readers who appreciate sweeping generational narratives that delve into the themes of identity displacement and the resilience of the human spirit amidst historical upheaval. So this is following the story of Rosa Roshkin, and when she is young, she witnesses her father and brother killed, and her mother has gone, and her older brother is in Berlin, and basically she is then taken in by family, but they can't afford to look after her, so subsequently they adopt her out to a Scottish family who are also Jewish. So and it basically just starts there, and then we just go into this sweeping, beautifully written, beautifully narrated story about Rosa's life and the things that she encounters. Once she gets to Scotland, she is living in a house, and she meets her next door neighbours, William, and I want to say Rory? I think his name was. I can't remember his name because he was in the story, but he wasn't as prominent as William. And they live at number 17, and Rosa lives at number 19, and they come over and they want to know where she's from, and she says, I don't have a globe, and they say, we do, and this forms a beautiful friendship amongst them. And so these two families are then, we're seeing both of these families grow from these young people, and then it just keeps growing out and keeps expanding and all the things, and then war breaks out because, as I said, it starts in I think I want to say 1907, but she was born in 1901, so yeah, so it must have been 1907 that she ended up in Scotland. So I want to say that's what keeps coming, the date that keeps coming into my mind. I probably got that wrong, so I do apologize for that. But anyway, it starts then, and we slowly go through. So we're going through the First World War, we're also going through the Second World War, but we're getting these narratives from all the different people that come into her life, and mainly these two families. And these two families become really interconnected during the war, and then it just keeps growing from there. And it is also about displacement. And there was a line in the book, and I'm probably not saying it verbatim, but there was a line in the book where everybody comes from somewhere else. And I'm just like, that is so true. Like, when you go into any sort of country, there is always someone from somewhere else. And I just thought it was a beautifully well written book. I fell into this story, absolutely adored it, absolutely would read it again, because I'm sure there's stuff that I've missed, while driving during torrential rain and all the things. I may have missed a couple of things there, but I really appreciate how the author has written this book as well. So you're not just getting it from Rosa's point of view. So it's not her looking out at the world. We're actually getting her perspective. We come back to her perspective. We go away from her perspective. We get the neighbor's perspective, and so forth and so on. So it is multiple POV, and it does go for 100 years we follow. And it's surprisingly enough, like when you say that we're looking at 100 years, that it seems like it's a long time. But I didn't feel bogged down in that timeline. I felt like that there was enough narrative happening from different perspectives and how they were feeling and all of that sort of stuff, that it kept it at a really, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a slow pacing. I'd say it was medium to fast, because in some areas it was a little bit faster than others. That wasn't throwing the pacing off though. It was the narrative at the time, it warranted that little bit of a sped up and whatnot. So as I said, we go through World War I. We're also going through World War II. And Rosa throughout her life has always wondered what happened to her mother, because she's seen her brother and her younger brother and her father die, but she didn't know what happened to her older brother, who had left when he was 16 to go to Berlin to, I think he was studying music, or he was going to university. And so she, in her mind, because she didn't know what happened to him, she always imagined that he became this professor and all that sort of stuff. This obviously was leading up before World War II. And him being Jewish and in Berlin, we all know that that's not going to end very well. And so she always wondered what happened to her mother and all that sort of stuff. Subsequently, there are different things that happen throughout the book that just make you want to sit there and shed a tear, feel the feels. And it just felt like you were with this family, and you were seeing everything through all of their points of views, and it was just absolutely amazing. I really appreciated the fact that Rosa was a very strong, determined woman. She basically never married. She did have a child, but it was out of wedlock. So a little bit of a spoiler there, but that's how the families become sort of connected. And they, and basically, I don't really, like, it's really hard to talk about this book without giving that slight spoiler, to understand how these families become interconnected and why we're getting the points of view from each one. That is not going to take away from the story at all, not even remotely, because that moves pretty darn quickly in the first part of the book. We go through her younger years and up until she was 17 pretty darn quickly, and then we start to taper off, because this is where we're getting the other points of views coming in, and her mother, adoptive mother and father, and then we've got the neighbor's mother and father, and we've got these little narratives all the way through. We are in the United States, we are in Israel and Palestine, we're in Germany, we're in France, we're going to all these different places through this timeline, and we're getting all of these beautiful points of views and just reflections of things that they've gone through and how they feel displaced and why they don't want to do things that they don't just aren't willing to budge on and things like that. But I really, as I said, I really appreciated the fact that Rosa was written as a strong character. She knew what she wanted to do. She knew she wanted to help women. She knew that she didn't want to marry again and all that sort of stuff. And she just wanted to be, independent. And she wanted to become a doctor because her adoptive father was a doctor. But she ended up going a different route because of having a baby. As sometimes this can change the directory of things. But I really what I really appreciated in this book as well, I've got a pet peeve about pregnancy with young women. Now, I know it's the times and everything that it was written in, and that's how general perceptions of unwed mothers were and all the rest of it. But I've always hated that narrative that it wrecks someone's life. And in some cases it can totally destroy their life and all that sort of stuff. But it's a pet peeve of mine, because it's just so ludicrous to lose your mind over this, and and the way that women get treated around it as if they're dirty. It takes two to tango and all that sort of stuff. So you've always got this in your mind, and it's always been a pet peeve of mine. And I really appreciate historical fiction that writes pregnancy in a positive way. It did have a little bit of negativity in it, but it was still done tastefully. Like, they didn't make Rosa feel like she was dirty, unworthy, or anything like that. And I want to point that out, because I really do appreciate when authors put this in, because not everybody reacts, the way that in most books, how it's depicted, that it's the end of the world, that, the sky is falling, henny penny, and all the things that go with it. So I do really appreciate a book like that, where the author has, handled it in a somewhat positive way. It's not extremely positive, but it's still more positive than most books. Another book that comes to mind for that is the Dictionary of Lost Words. And a couple of my friends that have read that book as well, that was the one thing that we really appreciated that Pip Williams did, that it was so well written, and it was handled so well that it just sat really well with you while reading about that. And I feel like a lot of time when, and I know this is going to sound really sexist, but a lot of time when a man writes about a pregnancy, it seems to be that negative narrative. But I've started to notice that when women, and a lot more women, are involved in the decision making, it seems to be a lot gentler. And like, yes, this has happened, now we need to deal with it. And we're very practical, whereas the men tend to be more emotional. Not always the case, but I feel like that's how it's sort of like the men react badly in the narratives, whereas the women become practical. Okay, so this is the situation, this is how we handle, and they become the problem solvers. And I felt that way with this book, and I also felt that way with the Pip Williams. And I'm not comparing the two books, just that narrative, two very different books. But this was I just had a great time with this book. I loved every minute of driving down to Brisbane and back. I spent about 5 hours driving, so I was able to listen to a good chunk of it. And it was just really good. And it's one of those books that you can just put on and you can just fall in to the story, because I listened to the audio on this, and the audio was done really well. I really appreciated the way it was done. And so basically you could just put this on and you could sit there and do some cross stitch, or you could do some diamond painting, and you would just fall and be absorbed into the story. Also, I like the fact that we also had a lot of strong women in this book. Like, there were moments where, and they were talking about, not feeling connected to family and stuff like that, because we've got one character that doesn't have that connection with her brother, and she's feeling quite lonely. She's living away from home. We've also got the hopes and dreams that our parents have for us, but then we take a different path, and them coming to terms with all of that, because we all know what parents are like. So there was a lot of different things that I really enjoyed about this book. As I said, from the little blurb, it is about displacement, because Rosa is completely displaced from her homeland to a couple that she doesn't know. She doesn't know anybody. She is essentially a foreigner in Scotland, and it basically really hones in on that. And it also talks about Israel and Palestine, and Second World War, with all the Jews being displaced. There's a lot of talk about that in this as well, and just going through different things. And also there's a little bit of it's not heavy in it, but there is a little bit of racism, but I think it worked well in this story because it wasn't overshadowing the actual story. It was there, and it was acknowledged that this happened, and then how the people worked around that, and to keep moving forward and not letting it get them sidetracked from what they wanted to do and all that sort of stuff. So it was really well written, in my opinion. I just absolutely loved it. I don't know what I was expecting with this, because when I read the I thought it was going to be about like music and stuff like that, but it wasn't really about that, because the opening bit on the synopsis actually says she was 5 years old when her family are murdered in I think it's called pogrom, and she is forced to leave behind everything she knows, and with only a suitcase of clothes and her father's violin. Somewhere else is an epic generational novel about womanhood and family, and Judeo-Scottish experience across 2 world wars, and the creation of Israel and the fall of the Berlin Wall. So we've got a lot of history happening in this book. So that just gives you an idea about what it is. And there is, like, in just about all, when we're talking in the world wars and we're going through that, there is a lot of talk about the displacement and removal of people and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think if you like historical fiction, if you like multi-generational, generational sagas, and saga's probably the wrong word, because I don't feel like sometimes sagas can have a little bit of a negative connotation on a book, because people automatically think it's a drag, and that you're going to be slogging through the generations. This is not that. This is very much a medium fast-paced book, and I think that you really enjoy that. And if you like multiple points of views, this was not a confusing book whatsoever. But in saying that, I am a multiple POV generational sort of girly historical fiction. So of course I'm going to gel with this. So yeah, you're probably wondering what I've given it, because I've pretty much prattled on enough about these. I have actually given this book a 4.5-star rating. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me. As you know, I've been a little bit harsher this year on the books, but I really did enjoy it, and I'm glad that it was on the list, because I would not have known about this book otherwise. But that is it from me today. I'd just like to say thank you so much for hanging around and seeing what I had to say about this book. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't yet done so, and it tells me that a lot of you, about 75% of you, haven't subscribed to the channel that watch, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn it to all notifications, and then that way you're going to not miss out on any of the uploads that I put up. And also, while you're down there, hop, skip, and a jump over to the like button, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment down below. Have you read this book? What did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Was it not for you? I'm open to everything you've got to say. Just be nice down in the comments. But as I said, that is it for me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and of course keep turning those pages, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.